What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Extreme Conversations. I'm your host, the most professional wrestler, Brian Myers, and I'm here today with my producer, my right-hand man.
Well, yeah, hey, Smart Mark Sterling here as well for Extreme Conversations. I'm very excited about this project. Brian, what is the deal? What is Extreme Conversations with Brian Myers?
It's just an idea I had. I think anybody that's a fan of the Major Wrestling Figure podcast hears me talk consistently about ECW and how much it meant to me. Growing up, it was kind of just right place, right time for me. I was getting a little bit older. I had always loved, WCW and WWF growing up, and then ECW is something I discovered and was like, whoa. What's this? And it really changed the game for me as a wrestling fan, like to this day. And I just have like these crazy sentimental memories about it, being there at some couple live shows that I caught, and then the merchandise and things like that. And then now in my adulthood and after like 17 years of being a professional wrestler, I've gravitated to these guys when I'm in locker rooms with them, and I've befriended so many of them. And I have like really great open relationships with a lot of them. And I was thinking, all these wrestling podcasts, there's so many, but there's not one that really focuses in on just ECW alone. So I thought, you know what? If I've announced to the world what a fanboy I am of the ECW product, I think I could be the guy to do this. So
100%.
I'm going to give it my best try. I have a lot of, like I said, a lot of contacts with these people. They're at my fingertips, and I might as well share that with the world, especially when everyone loves hearing about ECW, and the people involved in ECW love talking about it. So,
right.
Why not?
Yeah, for me, ECW was the thing. I felt like the thing that you weren't supposed to be watching. Like I felt like I wasn't supposed to be watching. So that made it like more fun and more exciting. And it's such a short run, but so many insane things happened, and so many top guys in professional wrestling came out of that period. So
and ideas, and things that creative ideas that happen and were stolen that people don't even realize happened in ECW, first.
And moments and behind the scenes things that we're going to talk about. So
there's even more.
There's a lot of meat on the bone. So this is the pilot episode, and it really depends what happens in the future and how this episode does, but you have picked a very interesting topic. So what are we talking about today?
So I picked for this pilot episode Heatwave 2000, which was a show I just remembered finally watching at home on pay-per-view as a kid, and there was a lot of cool moments on that actual pay-per-view telecast. But then as I got older, and then, you get a shoot interview, you meet these guys. There's a lot of crazy stuff that went on behind the scenes of that show that, the average fan just wouldn't have any recollection, or, there's no way of knowing.
Right.
So I thought it'd be a fun way to kind of introduce this thing. I guess we should probably disclose to everybody, these interviews are all recorded in June.
Yeah.
And we've been going back and forth how to creatively edit this show, because it needed a special touch. We can't just, get this interview, boom, and then it is what it is. We wanted to do a little bit more than that. So I picked Heatwave 2000, which is the sixth and final Heatwave. And that took place on July 16th, 2000 at the Grand Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. Which
is like a famed arena, right? It's a pretty cool arena.
Old school, like famous arena. So big deal. The attendance was 5,700. Which is wild.
Which is crazy for, a kind of independent at the time.
Yeah. Do we want to run through the card real quick?
Yeah, sure.
We got Sally Graziano with Tony Mamaluke defeated Balls Mahoney. Kid Cash, Danny Doring, and Roadkill defeat Simon Diamond, C.W. Anderson, and Johnny Swinger. Jerry Lynn defeats Steve Corino. Chris Chetty and Nova defeat Dabaldis. Yoshihiro Tajiri defeats Mikey Whipwreck and Little Guido and Psychosis in a four-way dance. Rhino defeats the Sandman. Rob Van Dam with Bill Alfonso defeats Scotty Anton. Justin Credible, the ECW World Heavyweight Champion, defeats Tommy Dreamer. Justin Credible with Francine, Tommy Dreamer with Jazz, and Gorgeous George, which I don't know if we mentioned that or not. That's a very random trivia fact. I don't think a lot of people remember that Gorgeous George was in ECW for a hiccup.
Right. And then, obviously, like you said, some very important moments in ECW history in the show, but just to shine light on it, the big behind the scenes thing was the fight with a rival promotion. Can you briefly touch on that?
So, the big behind-the-scenes gossip of this event was that XPW, which was a upstart kind of ECW ripoff, let's be honest, promotion, they bought front row tickets, and they were going to be there, and chaos ensued. And I mean, you'll hear all about it this episode from a lot of different vantage points.
You're right.
But definitely some interesting stuff.
All right. So who are we talking to today?
I picked. Of course, I had to go with my girl Francine.
Yep.
She's my favorite. Mike Bucci, a.k.a. Nova, the king of old school, Steve Corino, and the man who held the prestigious ECW championship at the time and main evented this show, Justin Credible.
All right. Well, I think that we should get right to it. So why don't we start with Nova? I mean, he was in one of the undercard matches, and he talks about his position in the company and sort of what he was thinking about at the time. So let's go right to that.
All right, here we are. We are back, and we are with one of my personal favorites, a great friend of mine, a guy I owe a lot of my career to, ECW original Nova, a.k.a. Mike Bucci, a.k.a. Simon Dean of WWE fame. What's up, man?
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me, man. Again, you're always one of my favorite guys. You and your boy, you guys killed it. You guys came in, developmental talents. You guys were true lifelong ECW fans, which I know you guys always got a kick out of hanging like me, Dreamer, Stevie, and stuff. I thought you guys showed a pattern for young talents on there in the business, how to get in, kick ass, and make something of yourselves. You really did it, man. You should be proud of yourself.
I always even like early on, I realized like wrestling is so unique and bizarre. Like, so if you didn't have this like insane passion and love for it, like it was almost like, what are you expecting? And I think a lot of that comes from, you can relate to ECW, how even all these years later, like we're talking about Heat Wave 2000 right now, 20 years ago, which is hard to believe too. But people are still just clamoring for this brand and this product and like how much it meant to them. And I think it has a lot to do with that. It was just everyone.
When you see something hardcore on a show or something awesome and the crowd is chanting ECW, they still do it to this day. Mm-hmm. In the 20-something years out of, whatever my affiliation in wrestling, ever since WCW died, I've never heard a crowd chant WCW. WCW. Just
don't hold your breath on that one. I don't think it's coming.
They never did.
Yeah.
He came to see ECW to see the product, to see. The ECW was never ever about. Here's a secret, man, and you know it. It was never about barbed wire and blood and guts and all that shit. It was about the mindset of guys who were going out, and girls going out there saying, we're going to take this. This is ours. And just a killer attitude to go out there and kick ass. You would have been awesome, man. You would have. I think if you had just made it to ECW and ECW is still around, you had a career there, I think you would have said, I'm good. This is it. This is all I wanted to do. Like, if I wish I had taken, I don't know how I could have done it, but like behind the scenes footage at the arena, like just set up a camera back there to watch a show day from like 5 o'clock in the afternoon till 12 o'clock at night when like the main event was going off, just to see all the shit that went on behind the scenes of all of us and everybody hanging out and what was going on. Like that alone would have been volumes of TV just to see that. But it was unbelievable, man. It was probably my funnest part of my wrestling career ever was ECW.
So when I mentioned Heat Wave 2000, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think? I mean, obviously it's the one and only, it's really hard to believe, the one and only California ECW show of all time. I'd say up until that point, maybe the biggest show in company history. Successful, significance of the building being sold out and the attendance. We have almost 6,000 people in attendance. And of your career, certainly, right? The biggest show of your career up until that point?
Up until that point, for sure. I mean, we had always talked about, there's always been mumblings of trying to get out through the West, trying to expand Midwest, and getting to California was a huge goal. And when all that was kind of like, that was actually going to go off a couple times. It just never did. And then when they announced it, and I knew we were going to the Grand Olympic Auditorium and whatnot, and I knew the history of California, and I knew all the promoters out there and who booked who, and Dr. Tom taught me a lot of it. Cornette, I knew it. So I was psyched just to be part of that. I never knew if we would have had a second show. But after that first one, that was a thing that a lot of us were like, holy shit, man. Like, this is actually like, this is it. Like, my God, the ECW is like a national company now.
Yeah, that's a big time show.
It wasn't, but
so on this card in particular, you are with Chris Chetti taking on DeBaldi's a 5-minute contest. What is the life of Mike Bucci at this time as like a mid carder on this brand? Like, what is your job? What did you see your role in the company at this point?
Living a lot. That was a time period where I started to. Probably about a year before that, I really committed myself because I could always read the tea leaves. I was always pretty smart behind the scenes. So I always said to myself, if something happens to ECW and it goes out of business, not that I ever thought it would, but you got to have plan B and C and D. So I said, I want to try to become WWF marketable. So I wanted to try to get in the best shape I could. So I was training every day, 2 to 3 hours a day with cardio weights. I would go weeks at a time without touching a pretzel or a cookie. I mean, my diet was insane. It was down to I was doing macros 20 years before people were even really talking about it. Okay. I followed all the philosophies of the heavy trainers. I would train out in Gold's Gym, met with Charles Glass a bunch of times. Like, I was on point. So at that point, I was just worrying about any chance I ever got to be on pay-per-view to show the wrestling world what I had. Not just from being a guy who was running around as being Raven's lackey, but to being a guy who was like, holy shit, this guy's actually in good shape and he's pretty good at what he does. Mm-hmm. And my niche at ECW was like the innovator guy at that time. So for my thing was just going out there and seeing what I can come up with, what the fans would pop for. I was definitely working for the pops. I know I learned how to work smarter years later, but the ECW crowd was ooh and ah. And you go see Guns N' Roses, you want to hear "Welcome to the Jungle" and "Paradise City." You want to hear what you're famous for. So my niche started to become that. So that particular night, it was, hey, Chetty. I would always get the time cue from Tommy, and it was we never had, like, WWE has restraints. Hey, you got 3 minutes left. You got 2 minutes left. You got somebody yelling at you. So you got 12 minutes, and you go out there, and you got 8 left.
That was going to be, like, my question within the question, like, how to a T were things like that. I can't imagine it being very...
Man. Like, but you also knew. Like, Nova and Chetty were not going to go out there the way that was positioned. Because I think, if I remember correctly, the Baldies were beating up New Jack or something. Something like, I don't know how we got involved in that.
I believe New Jack makes his kind of return from the fall in Danbury, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then some smodge happened and we go out. But it wasn't like we knew in our heads, all right, let's piece this together. This is probably like a 6 to 10 minute trip around the sun. We know we're not going to go out there for 30 minutes. It wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. But everybody in ECW knew their place. They knew how to do it. And at the end of the day on TV, Paul would edit it. So he would edit out, time. But on pay-per-view, you knew. You went out there and said, hey, man, you guys got about 10 minutes for this thing. All right, cool, man. And nobody was in your ear saying 6 minutes gone, 5 minutes gone, 4 minutes, go home, come on, go home. Like WWE shit. That was constant with that. Mm-hmm. But ECW, no, almost never.
It's cool to hear that, like, and I think that was part of the success, the, like, almost team player, unselfish attitude. Yep. That definitely added to
when you success. Got done, you walked to the back. If you had a good showing out there, man, I mean, I hate to say it, you effing knew it. Like, you knew when you went out there, you got the reaction, you did what it was supposed to do, you got in the back. All the guys will watch the show, too. And I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about you go in that curtain when you're done with your shit, and it's over, you're high-fiving Dreamer. Sandman's the first one coming over, high-fiving. Rob would come over, yeah, man. All the next matches after you were watching it, the entire locker room. It's the only locker room I've ever seen that in. You know as well as I do in WWE, I don't know what it's like there now, but, I mean, probably half the guys watch the show or some don't, or they're supposed to watch it.
I was just telling someone this weekend, so, like, you're allowed to, like, leave now with, like, no heat whatsoever. So
oh my God.
There's no doubt in my mind that when we were on that full live event schedule, like, Seth Rollins comes back from a 25-minute live event match every night, literally to tumbleweeds and maybe some Gatorades on ice, because the boys are gone. Like, literally
that is terrible to me. Like, I remember when I was there in 2004, 5, 6, and whatnot, I remember, like, one time, I can't remember who it was, but I remember a couple guys left early, and the next day, like, Dean and those guys, like, man, they went off on them. And when I broke in, I was always taught 2 reasons. Like, you stay to watch the main event, to give them respect. If you want to be a main eventer, you should watch main eventers. Mm-hmm. And as crazy as this sounds, I'm going way back. If the heel had a ton of heat, sometimes you could be worried, and this fits into XPW 2000, the melee. But if the heel had a lot of heat,
we're getting to it.
If there was like a fight or something like that, you could come out of the locker room and help the guys out. I mean, that was a big thing, especially during the main event. Like, it was. I don't think in my whole entire wrestling career I've ever left the show early. Even like indies over the last couple of years, if I did a couple, I stayed to the last match. And it just, I never understood that, man.
It's just part of the new. I mean, I'm guilty myself because it was like everyone was doing it. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna be the only one sitting here. But yeah, it's definitely part of the new. I mean, I remember our first year on the road, literally checking the time on my phone. It was that fast, and Undertaker saw it and went nuts at the monitor, instead of watching the show. So,
oh yeah,
I absolutely get the mentality of it. So there's kind of a unique moment on this show. It's RVD versus Scotty Anton doing the clap.
Yep.
They go 20 minutes, probably about 12 too long. But on the show, do you remember what Rob does for the very first time?
The Van Terminator, I think, didn't he?
Terminator, yeah.
I remember him practicing that before the show. We were like, what is he doing?
As the innovator guy, did you have anything to do with that or any recollection of that? Or
I just remember I would always be in the ring before the show. I wrestled a couple matches before every ECW show. I was like the tryout guy. I'd work out with locals, train with them and stuff. And I'd always throw some different twists and turns. But I remember Rob screwing around with that. He didn't have the chair or anything like that. He didn't have anything. He would just go on the turnbuckle, just getting his distance and landing on his feet near the other door. He didn't land on his ass and hit the kick. Yeah. But I just remember Rob was the kind of guy that was like, he would just think of something and just like try it once or twice and go do it. And the only other athlete I ever saw like that could literally do anything that he could think of was John Cronus from ECW. He's the only other one that could do anything that he thought of, but athletically wise. But yeah, I would always sit, I'm like, that's different, man. But yeah, Rob was awesome, dude. I love Rob. What a cool dude.
All right, next we're going to hear from the king of old school, Steve Corino. And I mean, I probably say it in this interview, but this is, as a fan watching this show, this is what stood out to me the most. And it was him and Jerry Lynn, two of my favorite wrestlers at the time, maybe ever. And, they had this pretty awesome blood feud, and then the die written on his chest in blood and his fingerprint, which I thought was the coolest thing ever, or at least I never forgot about it, I'll tell you that. So
right. And if you're listening to that, you got to go check out that image because it is unreal.
All right, we're back here with former ECW World Heavyweight Champion, the king of old school, Steve Corino. What's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
So today we are talking all things Heat Wave 2000. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of that show?
So it just passed the 20-year mark, so people were reminding me of it on social media. So, like the first thing that I think of is Jerry Lynn writing "die" on his chest with my blood, and I went back and watched it. And I'm usually very critical of all my stuff, but like there were some fun things about that match that I love, and that's all I remember. I mean, I remember little things from that night, but like that's what I think of when I think of Heat Wave.
Yeah, so I think, I'll throw this your way as an ECW fan. Hands down the match of the night on the show, for sure, you and Jerry. And quite possibly, the more I've been thinking of this, maybe like the last iconic ECW moment, that die in blood. What do you remember about that? Like, was that, I don't know if that was like impromptu or something that came about ahead of time, or that's something that you guys plotted it on I
feel like that was more of a Jerry Lynn is he has that facade that he's the nicest person in the entire world, but when you really get into Jerry Lynn, he's a sick person. And he came up to me about a week before and said, "Hey, I have this idea. Like, I know we have this match and we don't have a lot of story, but like, were you planning on bleeding?" I'm like, no. And, because that's the misconception is like, I like the bleed. Like, I just didn't know how to do it. And I obviously did it really, really bad. But, so Jerry goes, "Man, I had this idea of like, I would write the word die with your blood on my chest." And I'm like, "All right, cool, man. I'll do what I can. I'll try and do it." Like, so I guess he went to Paul and said it too. And Paul's like, "Yeah, of course, do. Yeah, kill yourselves out there." And, he just said, he goes, if it comes to it, like, I'll do it. And I'm like, because you know how it is. You don't know how much you're going to bleed and stuff like that. And, I just went a little too deep, and it gave him perfect opportunity.
Yeah. When you started out your career in pro wrestling, did you ever see yourself as the guy that was going to bleed all the time? Like, how did that become your... If you're saying you didn't mean to, like, how did that become your thing? It was almost like your signature in ECW there for a while.
It was, and I think like I said, the misconception is like, I like to do it. Like guys like Balls and New Jack, like they love to do it. Like I hated it. Like, but I also didn't complain about it. It was my job and it was what was expected of me. And I kind of built my character into that. Like when I start bleeding, I'm gonna probably have to bleed more than I want to. But you know, it just happened. Like when I went to the Mess Brothers Wrestling School in Reading, Pennsylvania in '94, like I didn't think like, man, when is bleeding class? Like, or like, I can't wait to, I can't wait to bleed. And, but like, I grew up a big like NWA fan. So there was a lot of blood and there was a lot of scars. So you could put two and two together. And that, once I started cutting my head, I was like, damn, I really suck at this. And then everybody's like, oh, you're like the best bleeder. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. Do you regret it at this stage in your life at all or anything like that? No.
Look at me, Brian. I think the scars are like the third worst thing about my face right now. No, because like all I've ever wanted to do was wrestle. Like I wasn't into the drug scene. I wasn't into like the groupie scene. I was just a wrestling nerd. Like when other guys were going out to party, like I would sit back at the hotel with like Jack Victory and just analyze and overanalyze, or halfway through say, hey, Jack, do you remember that time you wrestled Brad Armstrong? Like, I was just that wrestling nerd. So to me, it just part of my story of like big nerd grows up, wants to be a wrestler, gets a cup of coffee on top, and you know, he sold his soul to the devil and got 64 stitches out or 64 scars out of it. It's fine to me. Like, I don't think I was ever Brad Pitt to begin with. So
there you go. So, I mean, you're saying you're admitting your wrestling fandom. You're headed into a sold out ECW pay-per-view, legendary wrestling building. You're wrestling Jerry Lynn. What are you feeling like? Where are you in your career at this time? Or how are you feeling about this? Are you intimidated? Are you excited? All the above? Or, you know, what's your mindset?
The first few times I wrestled Jerry, I was really intimidated because I would watch what he would do with like Lance Storm, or he would just do with Incredible. Go, yeah. And it just seemed so complicated. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get exposed. Like, I'm okay on the microphone, but you know, bell to bell, or you know, I'm going to try and keep up. And the first few times I wrestled Jerry's just like, relax, you got this. You know, if you don't have it, I'll work around you. And I was like, and he did, like, and he built like this confidence in me. So I was excited for the challenge to wrestle him on pay-per-view, because I thought like, okay, I'm on this upswing. Like I've wrestled Dusty, I've wrestled Tajiri. Like I'm now a player. Like I don't know where I'm going, but like I feel like I'm going somewhere. Like it's funny because I thought I was on my way to like the World TV title, you know, with Van Dam being out and everything. I felt like, oh, there's going to be this time when Rhino's going to go for the world title and I'll be in like that Tully Blanchard heel TV champion role. That was just my goal. And so I knew like I had to produce, and like that crowd was just, they were so electric, and I just fed off of it. And you know, when you're 27, like you don't feel any pain, and you're in that building, it's got so much history, and you're wrestling like someone as awesome as Jerry. Like you're on cloud nine.
Is a big part of your goal is just earning the respect of the ECW faithful, because then you're a main man. You know, it doesn't matter if you do it through, you know, your pure wrestling or, you know, bleeding your brains out. You know, I think that was kind of how you got over in ECW, right? Earning the respect of their faithful, and you know that's how people's careers really changed there.
Yeah, and I think I got over a little bit with the microphone stuff, not being afraid to say the wrong thing, and I started to make the name for myself, and you know, doing the stuff with Taz, and then you know, I had like one hell of a house show run with Dreamer, like, and a lot of it was mic work, and then you know, Paul really wanted to put the ball on Rhino, so like he didn't want Rhino to speak in the beginning, so like I was doing a lot of Rhino's promos, and I was doing Tajiri's promos, so that's what I was known for first, and then all of a sudden Dusty comes to ECW, and then I'm not the manager in tights anymore. I'm like, now I gotta wrestle, and I'm excited, and I totally didn't see me getting over with my wrestling in ECW as much as I would with the microphone.
So shortly after, you earned the respect so much that you become a babyface. Was that something that you were excited about or even foresaw coming?
No, I thought it was a rib. I literally thought it was a rib, Scoop. So, and Paul said he made his mind up after Heatwave. It's, you don't really see it on the network, but like on like commercial tapes and stuff like that, we get to the point where Jerry gives me the pile driver and he just spikes the hell out of me. And probably because I was a fat ass going up, because like I'm bleeding to death. I'm tired and I don't have the wind of a Jerry Lynn. Like I'm just happy to be there. And he lays on me, he goes, "I'm too tired to hook your leg." I go, "Oh, I'm not kicking out." Like,
nice.
But I guess as they were going to the package, the next package, I got like a great like babyface ovation on the way out.
I call that the Tommy Dreamer clap.
Exactly, the Tommy Dreamer clap. Yeah,
you didn't win, but you tried really hard, and we appreciate it. Golf clap you get.
Yeah. Victory whispers in my ear. He's like, "You effed up now. We're in trouble." And I just thought it was just funny. And then a couple of weeks later, we're doing TV, and Paul's not there for TV. And this is 2000. Like, not everybody had a cell phone, or an idiot like me's got to carry two. And because I'm so important.
Yeah, and we know the bat phone could go off at any moment.
Yeah, right. It's fucking crazy. And so we didn't have cell phones. I got a page from Paul that said, "Call me immediately." And you know how it is with Paul. Like everything is something's on fire. Mm-hmm. So Dreamer comes to me, and he just, in Dreamer's way, he's like, turning babyface tonight. I'm like, "Oh my God, I gotta get my calling card out and call Paul." And I did, and he goes, "You're gonna turn babyface tonight." I was like, no, seriously, like, what am I doing? Like, he's like, "No," he's like, and he gives me this Paul Heyman, "It's your time" speech that I got against Tajiri, that like, I'm hearing it again. And then I was like, wait, holy shit, I heard this a couple of months before with the Dusty feud. I'm like, man, I'm pumped up, because like, you could go into a Paul Heyman meeting and think like, this guy is just going to BS the world out of me. And then you listen and you walk out of there and you can run through walls. Yeah. And so that's where I was. And he's like, "You're going to do this. And Justin's going to say, I'm not just the best. I'm not." He'd go into his catchphrase. And he goes, "And you're going to break it up and say this." And I'm like, I am? I'm like, no way. This isn't happening. And then I started to worry. I said, "Well, what about Jack?" He's like, "Well, we'll talk about that in a week or two." And I'm like, "Well, Paul, I really don't want to turn babyface unless Jack's with me." And he's like, "No, I promised you the day I put you guys together that you would always be together." And I'm like, "Rrr." So I did it, and it turned babyface, and it went well. And then for about a week and a half, I was scared because we had the arena coming up, and
that's kind of like the do or die place, right? Yeah,
I'm like, if I can get over in the arena, and once again, like, it just, a guy like Scotty Riggs, like just a good dude, said, "Don't worry, kid." He's like, "Just listen to me." He's like, "They hate me. You'll be fine." And he did great. And Victory was back with me, like, and Paul didn't lie to me about it, and all of a sudden I was babyface for a little bit.
So the other pretty infamous thing, but I mean, in my mind as a fan, the die is like, when I think of the show, that's what I think of.
Gross.
Throughout, I mean, it's ECW history. It's something you remember. It stayed with me, and I think it stays with a lot of fans.
Oh my God!
All right, next up we have the Queen of Extreme, Francine. The lady who was there for almost the beginning to the end of ECW. She's there for every single thing, and she is right in the thick of this one in the main event, and then obviously a big part of the brawl that will ensue. All right, joining me now, the Queen of Extreme, Francine, my middle school crush, my mid-30s crush. Franny, welcome. Oh. Thanks for coming on.
How are you? Sweet. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. What comes to mind when you think of Heatwave 2000?
Oh, we're just getting right into it. We're starting hot.
Yeah, let's go.
Going.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. when I think of Heatwave 2000, I think of those idiots from XPW.
All right, that's is that
what you wanted me to say?
Yeah, and that's been a popular answer. So what was there like rumblings during the day? Like were you just completely caught off guard by this?
No, not at all.
You knew you thought something was going down?
Yeah, okay. I knew something was going to go down because we had Jasmine St. Clair with us.
Yes.
Who used to work for them. And I was friends with her at this time. And we knew that they bought tickets. We were aware of the whole, we're buying front row tickets. Now, I'm trying to remember, I know like we were discussing it, like Paul was telling us things. And I think that somebody had mentioned like, we don't mind you're purchasing tickets as fans, but like be respectful kind of deal, from, one wrestler to another. Don't show your shirts or anything like that. And I think they agreed to it. Like from what I remember, they said, we're not here to start trouble. We're here to watch the show. Mm-hmm. Okay, whatever. So Atlas was ready. Ronnie and the boys, they were ready in case something happened.
Always ready.
Always ready. And Jasmine was in the back. And like, we had our TV set up. So all the boys used to sit and watch each other's matches. And she was telling us like who was who. Like this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so.
That's a little inkling I hadn't had that you had the inside kind of like, because how are you to know? Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of knew who was in the front row. Now, I didn't know any of these guys. The only person I had met was like Rob Black.
Who's the owner?
Because he's the owner, yeah. And he was super. Like, he was really a nice guy, And, but I wasn't aware of, like, Supreme and, like, all those other guys. So she showed us who was who or whatever. And we knew where they were sitting. And, like, the whole show goes on and nothing happens. Yeah, and then we get out there for the main event. And my heart broke for PJ and Tommy because they had worked out like such a great match and barbed wire and all this crazy stuff. And we're telling a story like we're supposed to do. And then like we get our introductions and I remember like I was on the apron, I jumped down and I'm just like standing there waiting for them to lock up. So I turn around and the girl who was Christy Mist, I didn't know her at the time.
Yeah.
I hear like all this rumbling behind me. Like at first I think I got a show your tits chant when I was in the ring, which all the girls do in ECW. That's
par for the course with ECW. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I didn't get it, I'd be all sad. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get that chant and I'm like being my heel self and whatever. And I jump down and then you hear a quiet, but then you hear the crowd come up again. Now my back is faced I'm facing the ring. I don't know what the pop's from. I turn around and I see the girl is standing on the chair and she's like taking her shirt off.
Okay.
So I'm like, now I heard Meltzer like 20 some years ago say, oh, Francine was pissed because she was stealing her heat. No, that wasn't the reason why I was so mad. These people, the girl and the rest of the guys, they're taking away from something that we worked so hard for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they literally paid to make a name for themselves at ECW's expense. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah, because they said we were in their backyard, right? Okay. We're in California. It's their backyard. I didn't know LA was their backyard, but whatever. So I wasn't mad. I wasn't like, my mindset wasn't the girl is stealing my heat. My mindset was this whole row of people are taking away from the main event. Mm-hmm. And all of us that were involved, because there was a lot of people involved in this, we all worked really, really hard for this moment. And I knew the match was going to be great. And now you got this dummy standing on the chair. I honestly feel like she didn't even know what was going on. Not saying she was on drugs or anything. I just feel like they manipulated her to do it. Because I go over to her. There were no punches thrown. No one grabbed me.
That's been like the rumor over the years that it all started because someone grabbed you or something like that, or said something like that really crossed the line, or.
So Joey Styles did his job well. We weren't going to put them over on pay-per-view. So we're not going to say, oh my God, XPW's in the house, you know. Christine, we're not going to name them.
It's a hell of a free plug. Yeah.
They don't deserve it. So why should we do it? So Joey thought, you know, really quickly and just said a fan grabbed Francine, and that was it.
That's okay.
Reality.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody grabbed me because you see Atlas run over and you see the boys come out. I mean, it was a mess. And so I just I went over and I started hollering at the girl to get down. I started screaming at her, like, just please get off the chair. You know, I didn't touch her. I didn't punch her. I didn't do anything like that. She wasn't listening to me. And she turned around and looked at me like a deer in the headlights. She looked scared. I don't know if she was scared of me or scared of the situation. She just had this blank face. And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, get down off the chair. And she wasn't moving. At that point, Atlas runs over and Supreme, who I believe was the big, bald, heavyset guy, he got knocked into the girl and the girl fell off. She fell off her chair. I didn't push her off the chair. Her and I had no exchange whatsoever. It was just, she was looking at me like, oh my God, what's going on? And I just kept saying, get off the effing chair. Because at this point, I'm so mad. And now I know what's going on. The shirts, they took off their shirts and they're doing this. And I said, well, shit just hit the fan. Here we go. Yeah. And then I remember, and I was with PJ, I was with Justin Credible, but Dreamer comes over and he grabs me and he's like, we need to get in the ring. And I'm just like, get off me. And I get in the ring because, you know, I'm supposed to be a heel. He's a babyface, but he's telling me, please get in the ring. And I get in the ring and you could see I'm fuming because I know this is going to take a little bit and minutes are ticking off the main event.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we had 7.5 minutes from 15, 20, something like that. Like they ate up all of our time.
In your opinion, do you think this was calculated to wait to the main event to, you know, pick their spot? Yeah, for sure.
Why not? Why, if they wanted to do something earlier, they would have. They patiently waited and they sat there and they knew. Now, did I start the riot? One has to wonder.
I say that. I mean,
I've said this over and over again. I honestly feel like if I didn't go over and you know, tell the girl to get down, they would have started with the shirts anyway. Atlas would have came out. The boys would have ran out. Anyway, I was not the cause of this fight. A lot of people said it was all my fault. I don't believe it was my fault. I was pissed, and rightfully so. I think anybody else in my position probably would have did the same thing. And if they didn't do it, the event still would have taken place in the exact same order.
Oh my God! All right, next let's hear from not just the coolest, not just the best, the man who is in a Stairway to Hell match on this evening with Tommy Dreamer. It's Justin Credible. All right, joining me now here on Extreme Conversations, former ECW World Heavyweight Champion Justin Credible.
What's going on, buddy?
What's up, man? Thanks for doing this.
Hanging in, trying to stay busy.
All right, when you think of Heatwave 2000, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
First thing that comes to my mind was XPW.
Okay, we can get right into it. I mean, I think, so it's funny, like for me as a fan, when this show happened, I remember it for all the storyline and wrestling aspects, but as time has gone on, this backstage story of what this fight was with the XPW guys has really kind of blown up and become a thing that's a whole nother layer to the whole show.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that I find very fascinating. So, were there rumblings during the day? Like, let's take it like from there. It was just completely off guard.
I had no idea. My dream was to be world champion of any organization. I mean, it was like, if you go back to the day of like WWF, NWA, and AWA, it was like the third promotion, right? So I'm headlining a pay-per-view as the world's champion. It's like a dream, you know? Absolutely, it's like a childhood dream, you know? So me and Dreamer are in the ring, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at Tommy. We're doing like the stare off, and Tommy's like, oh my God, what did Francine do? And I didn't know. So all of a sudden, just all hell breaks loose. And I guess there were some things going on. And I know Balls Mahoney kind of got into it earlier in the day, but it was really something that caught us all off guard. So it just, you know, it didn't really affect us, but I know a lot of us in the ring, but a lot of the attention got, thrown the other way to that. So, it was kind of weird. And then, a couple of years later when ECW went out of business, I ended up working for XPW, which was weird. But anyways, it was what it was, but that's the first thing that comes to mind, man,
Yeah. So we're at the Grand Olympic Auditorium here in Los Angeles. I thought it was, and I did my research and realized that it was the one and only California ECW show of all time. You're the World Heavyweight Champion, like you said, on top. Like, are you just riding this high, or is this unbelievable for you?
Yeah, I was. I mean, especially the history of the Grand Olympic Auditorium. I mean, Pat Patterson, Ray Stevens, all those wonderful, legendary performers came out of that territory, and and it was legitimately sold out. It was a beautiful venue. And, and that's the sad thing about ECW was 2000, a lot of people say that, the best of ECW had gone away. It was just like, we're picking up the scraps. But how can you say that when all of our pay-per-views until the end were sold out, So it's kind of, it's bittersweet, but it was just a great experience. And, if that was my moment in the history books to have that title for the amount of time I did, and just to headline these wonderful arenas was cool, and if that's all I have, that's great.
Tommy Dreamer's your opponent here. This is kind of like a blow off to him winning the belt, and then you fucking him over, and then you win the belt, the turn with Francine. What are your memories of all that storyline and stuff?
I remember it all just being at that point, Tommy was doing most of the writing, believe it or not. Paul had really resorted in just, whether it was true or not, trying to negotiate television projects and all that stuff. So Tommy really was leading the charge as far as booking. It was a blur, man. It was a real blur because there was so much else at stake. I just think everybody was so worried about the company surviving that, we just went out there and did what we were supposed to do. And everybody else was we were just worried if the checks were going to clear.
Yeah. I hear you.
I remember, man, Joel Gerdner, I was pretty close with him at one point, and I got him an apartment near where I live in Waterbury, Connecticut. And when we would get paid, there was an 800 number on the back of the checks. And you literally, when we got paid, we would dial the 800 number, and we would then type in the account number, and we would see if there was enough money in there to clear my particular check or his particular check. Mm-hmm. So there was a beeline to the banks
so every time, racing the other boys who were doing the same thing.
Yeah, to whoever got there first. That's wild. And because that's the thing. I say this, and some people get like freaked out, but I was making more for ECW than I did for WWE.
Which I can understand.
I was making $3,000 a week guaranteed, regardless if I worked once, twice, or 4 times. Mm-hmm. Which I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a pretty good paycheck for doing something you love. You know what I mean? And that's what it became. It just became a lot of doubt and a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. Did when the belt kind of came to you, it was kind of out of all the drama of the Mike Awesome kind of jumping to WCW and the Taz and the flip flop there. Did you feel a little slighted by that, like because you were deserving of it and to get it in that way, or was your pride take a little hit, or did you feel like it was your time to be champion? Did you think that was the spot that you deserved to be in?
I think it was. I never thought of it like that way. I just figured, I was just a loyal soldier, dude. I just figured, this is what they need me to do. I was, of course, very proud and very, very humbled by it, and I loved every minute of it. But I never felt that it was like, I didn't feel slighted. I just felt that because the whole thing for the past about a year before we closed, the whole thing was Paul was supposed to have the big feud was supposed to be me and RVD. RVD was supposed to be the television champion. I was supposed to be the world champion. It was supposed to be the way RVD got the belt. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, there was a pay-per-view, I think it was in Buffalo, New York. It was myself and Lance Storm against Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam. I don't remember I don't know if it was Hardcore Heaven or 99, might have been, but the whole thing was don't touch Van Dam. You don't touch Van Dam until it's time so the whole thing was to get Rob over for the heavyweight title. So, and then unfortunately that never came to fruition, but that was the whole thing. from the beginning, and it's a shame because I would have loved to have worked Rob in that atmosphere,
It does always feel like, as a ECW fan, the unwritten, never paid off ECW thing is RVD getting that title, because he was, the guy.
Right.
The guy,
Oh, yeah.
at least by the time it closed the doors, that it, was people were paying to see him. It felt like
Absolutely, and he was. I mean, his matches with Jerry Lynn were probably some of the, and he killed poor Jerry. I'll tell you, the MVP of ECW was Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, he's the man.
Was Jerry Lynn?
Yeah,
no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I worked Rob, someone said, "Oh, he's going to stiff you." And I definitely caught a real one at some point. I couldn't tell you on what. I was too excited to be in there with him, but something.
Well, Rob was a different animal than he was in ECW. Yeah. I think we all were.
Yeah, of course.
For whatever reason, because I ended up working Rob in 2002 or 2003 finally for like a Sunday Night Heat, and it was a different Van Dam. He barely touched me, and I was like, "Well, thank God." But Rob, but when he was in ECW, he really felt like this was his time and God bless him, dude. Him and Jerry Lynn gave some of the most compelling matches of our era and that era.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really did.
Which is also cool with the switch of other matches got the blood and guts, but they were just doing pure wrestling, getting over just as much. That's what I think. That's another thing that I've always loved about ECW was it had every little bit of everything for everybody.
Well, that was the whole thing and I think the extreme thing really was, it didn't necessarily mean extreme as far as hardcore. It was, super crazy to Jerry. Like I think extreme meant passion, and that was what Dreamer tried to relay to us. It doesn't necessarily mean blood and guts for everything. It's like we have a whole, palette of wrestling, and whatever we do, we just do 110%, and we work hard, whether it's, technical wrestling, whether it's, lucha wrestling, whether it's ladders, tables, whatever,
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it,
Yeah.
The extreme doesn't mean I'm going to cut myself. It means,
Right, exactly.
On the flip side, this main event match is a Stairway to Hell match. So for those of you who don't know, this is a traditional pro wrestling ladder match, but hanging above the arena is not a briefcase with a contract. No. It's a bundle of barbed wire, and the first guy who gets it gets to abuse his opponent with it. So what is going through your mind as a performer heading into a match with such a stipulation?
We really it's a hard stipulation because at the end of the day, like once you get to the barbed wire, you could use it. It was kind of a corny stipulation because it really didn't give you much incentive other than, you get to use the barbed wire. At the end of the day, it was just another toy, which, one thing ECW didn't do very well was like really, since everything was out, this is where rules make sense in wrestling.
Yeah.
Because, when you break rules, it matters. With ECW, there were no rules anytime. So it really, like having barbed wire up there really was anticlimactic. So it was just a poorly thought gimmick. But at the end of the day, it was like whoever got there first can get to use the barbed wire. I almost killed Dreamer too on that match. If you go back to look at that match, we were fighting by the concession stand, and like I said, everything was kind of thrown to the wayside because of the XPW stuff. So we were both frazzled, and we're fighting somewhere up top on a ladder near the tables where the merch is. And Dreamer's like, "Throw me off." And I went to throw him the opposite way, where he would take a 20-foot drop. And Tommy's like, wrong way, dude. And I literally threw him the wrong way.
It's funny you say that. I remember December 23rd, 99, there's a TNN taping in White Plains that I went to as a kid.
Oh, that was the best.
And that's supposed to be you and Tommy Stairway to Hell, but the New York State Athletic Commission shut it down, and instead there's a kendo stick, right? Instead of the barbed wire?
Yeah, it was a kendo stick.
Yeah, I remember being real sad about that.
And that was where we shot a lot of footage for the Acclaim video game.
Oh, really?
As well.
Oh, I didn't know that. No one's ever told me that. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, so now that we've sort of set up the event and how important it was to ECW at the time and what everybody was doing, let's talk to them about this brawl. Now, the interesting thing that you will hear is that they were all in different spots for this fight. Outside the ring, inside the ring, in the middle of the fight,
and
bleeding to death in the back.
I mean, I think everybody will kind of, it's entertaining to hear all these different vantage points for sure. So I don't even want to listen to it for yourself. It's incredible.
Right. All right, let's hear it.
So you're 100%. out there at the ring for the main event once things finally restore to order.
Right.
What version of the beatdown or riot that ensued backstage or in the parking lot, depending on who you ask over the years, what version of that, I want to just call it a fairy tale because I've never really gotten the full, what version of that do you remember hearing since you weren't there to see it?
Yeah, I wasn't able to see it. And if I wasn't involved in the main event, my ass would have been right at the door and watching everything. Or possibly beating the girl up if I needed to. I've never been in a real fight in my life, just to let you know that. I've never hit a soul. I just heard, while we were working, about 20 of the boys ran outside and just beat the living crap out of them. And I think they deserved it. There's respect in this business. And you've been working a really long time. I have never walked into somebody else's locker room or went to somebody else's show and tried to put myself over or tried to, take away from another person, especially when you don't work there. Like I to this day, I don't understand what they were thinking. What do they think they were going to get out of this? 5 minutes of fame. That's pretty much it.
Funny thing that I've said from time to time. So like me as a fan watching this show, I didn't know it was XPW. I thought something happened. So like the plug they got maybe was within the live crowd a little bit, but like the viewer at home just thinks the show's been interrupted and they don't know. And years later I find out, as an educated fan that all this happened,
Yeah, like if you weren't sheet privy, you didn't hear about it. You had to, be involved in the sheets and stuff like that. Again, Joey handled it beautifully. He did everything the right way, not giving credit to these guys, and us just going through with the rest of the show. It didn't go according to plan. We lost a lot of valuable time, valuable spots that we were going to do. Match wasn't as good as it could have been, but for what it was, I mean, the guys worked their asses off and they tried to bring the crowd back, but it was just a bummer, it was really upsetting.
So it puts a little halt to your main event match there. Things get back on the rails. What did you hear about the backstage version of that fight? Is that going on while you're in the ring now?
I guess it did. Apparently, Balls, New Jack, Sal, and a bunch of those guys just took them out back and roughed them up. Things get exaggerated through the years, but the way we were back then, it was like a band of brothers. I mean, it's nothing like, like corporate wrestling and stuff. It was really something different. And I could see that those guys probably just took it personal like a gang and just said, don't step on our turf, which is, it's kind of silly if you look at it today. But, it's what it was, man. And it just added to the ECW lore, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what it's kind of become. Like, it's like almost depending on who you get the story from, you get a different version of, this,
from everybody,
this wild parking lot brawl that went on in the midst of your main event match. What is your recollection of all that? Because the lore of this Rumble, this backlot brawl that happened while the main event's going on, by the way, so there's no cameras, no nothing. This is real life. Has ranged from I think fairy tale to all kinds of reality TV.
I'll tell you what I know, because like I am not a tough human being. Like I am barely a man. If I didn't mow my lawn every week, like there would be nothing manly about me. So I come in and I am bleeding, and like it's like the first time I'm ever getting lightheaded, and like Balls Mahoney, like God rest his soul, like he could be Balls, like, and Dreamer always say like he was like a Neanderthal man, like he was just 10,000 years behind, and but Balls was a sweetheart, and he's like, oh, you need stitches, like, so he found what I think was a doctor. It could have been a pharmacist. Like, I don't know. Like, why is this guy hanging out with Balls? So we went into the bathroom and they stitched me up. And literally Balls is like, I'm in this, like, in the nerd in me's like, oh, I bet you John Tolis got stitched up in this bathroom.
That is
pretty
cool.
blasty, right?
Yeah.
But then part of me is like trying not to cry because it hurts. And Balls is holding my hand like I'm a child, and he is just like my big crazy looking father. And it takes a while. I think I got 26 or 28 stitches. And like, don't come to me about learning how to blade. I don't know. Look, 26 to 28 stitches. Ooh. Yeah, that means I didn't do it right. Dreamer's still good looking. He's done it 30,000 times.
You know what? Come to think of it, like, I'm not trying to shout you out, but like you and Devon, and obviously like New Jack.
Yeah,
you see the scars. Dreamer, you don't really see his scars too much.
Oh, he
definitely bled his share. Shit,
he did, right?
Yeah,
I hate him so much.
I cut you off. So lead into the fight.
Yeah, so I'm holding Balls' hand. They stitched me up. Like they gave me like a half a gallon of orange juice. I don't know what the hell that does. It apparently throws blood back into you. And it was 2000. So I walk out the door and like I'm looking at the locker room and like everybody looks blown up. Like I'm like, this is such a weird scene, right? And I look over and Jack Victor used to wear the hockey jersey. He would wear it everywhere. He's got his hockey jersey off, and he's got one. He would wear a singlet underneath, and he had one strap down. I go, Lawler, did you get into a fight? And he goes, Stevie, where were you? Right? I go, what do you mean? And he goes, we just fought some bunch of guys, right? Because Jack doesn't know what XPW is. He's like, we just fought a bunch of guys, and then like Big Sal, and then Red Dog. I'm like, I didn't even know Red Dog was part of the company. And Red Dog's got like blood on his hands and stuff. I was like, what went on? And apparently like this all went on. And Balls flips out. And he's like, where are they? And no lie, like a couple of months later, like I'm watching a Balls Mahoney shoot team, and he tells his version of the LA fight where he's out there whipping ass. No, you were holding my hand. You were being a nice human being.
That is great. Oh man, Balls is someone we have to do a whole episode on because I know the story is just it's very high on my list. I even told my producer. I said that would
what a personality.
Yes, exactly. So you hinted towards it a little bit. This show, I feel like at the time wasn't so infamous for this because you had to be in the know. It just looked like some strange fan altercation. But XPW has bought front row tickets. What do you remember? Any rumblings about this? Rumors, and then take me to where you were when the actual confrontation and things went down during the main event.
Yeah. So like. We had XPW. I think XPW and the other people who talked to on this can probably elaborate. But XPW came into our lives. I want to say Tommy and Bubba hit up a friendship with Rob Black because he would come watch the shows and whatnot. And something happened when they.
it clearly, and I don't even know, but it clearly looked like it came from an ECW markdomness. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
The guy was a fan. Yeah,
100%, dude. Like I remember, I'm almost positive. Like Dreamer and Bubba carnied their way onto like a porn set one day, and I'm pretty sure they directed a porn. I'll ask Dreamer about it, but I'm pretty sure they did.
Or the production company was all the same.
I know they did.
Something like that.
But, So Rob Black was kind of in and all this. I guess I don't know. Carny people were carny people. And like there was a big falling out. So he goes to California and does what everybody does. He starts his own promotion and called it XPW, Extreme Pro Wrestling, which I thought that was stupid. But as we were going out there were several of us who were like, there's no way these guys are going to show up here because they were mumbling about it. They were going to come out and do this and that. But it's not mathematically feasible to think they're going to show up there. So sure enough, show starts and people are coming in, loading up the crowd and whatnot. And we see all these XPW guys like in the front row, in the first like row or two. And there's a bunch of them wearing XPW shirts and all this stuff. And from Atlas Security, Ronnie and Atlas, They all go down and they're reading the riot act, and the people in the back are like, what the hell? And we're looking at it. They make them take off their shirts and put on ECW shirts, and everything was cool. Mm-hmm. I remember me and Chris going out for our match, and I saw them like sitting in the front row. These guys, I'm telling you right now, they had the best seat in the house because they were fans the entire night. Yeah. Like, people can go back and maybe try to catch snippets and see it. They watch the show as wrestling fans, 100%.
It's tough because they're on the hard cam side, not opposite, so they're not being filmed, right?
Yes, but they were absolutely into the show. They were watching it, and it is what it is. But I remember, and it was funny, we were doing the voiceovers for the ECW video game, and the second one, I think, that came out, the one that I didn't know existed.
Anarchy Rules. I just got it for no reason. I don't even own a system, but I got it for the nostalgia of it.
I remember when they were doing the voiceovers, and they needed Tajiri to do his. So I don't speak Japanese, but Tajiri's very broken English. So I was cool with the guys who were doing it because I did mine earlier today. I said, well, look, I'll bring him in the room. And, I don't know what the hell I was trying to do, but I was trying to help him out, coach him to do the sounds. Uh-huh. So me and Tajiri are walking into this booth to do these sounds. We're probably in there for 2 minutes. And I had seen the main event go to the ring. It was Tommy and Justin and Franny and all that.
Stairway to Hell, Tommy Dreamer versus Justin Credible for the ECW Championship. Yep.
So they go out there and they're in the match. I'm in the thing with Tajiri doing sound overs, and all of a sudden I'm looking from the side, and I don't know why I saw it so clear. I see the monitor, and I see a fracas break out at ringside. And I came running out of the room, and I look, and I see the XPW. To this day, I don't know who did what first. I don't know if anybody clarified it or not, but somebody swung at someone, or supposedly somebody spit at somebody, or some bullshit. And next thing I know, a bunch of the ECW guys go running out of the back, go running down the ringside, and we start trying to get them, to hit them and stuff. And they all get escorted. Atlas comes. It's a huge melee. I'm pretty sure, I have to see it again, but I'm pretty sure they probably cut away from it, I guess.
It's like a distant hard cam shot they never really get away from. And you can't really fully tell what's going on. You can tell something's happened.
Like you said, you couldn't know what it was unless you knew.
And then what you really see is Big Sally Graziano is the one kind of pacing back and forth.
Everybody's out there and we're swinging at him. Atlas gets him out of the building. I'm like, all right, whatever. So everybody goes in the back. We walk through the back, and the first thing I'm thinking of, and I'm thinking almost I'm like, oh my God, is the pay-per-view ruined? What's going on with this match? Who's on live feed? I'm already thinking that way. And I go in the back and I look, and Paul Heyman I see him take the headset off, and we're all in the back gathered, and he turns the hat around, and he takes his headset off and puts it on the side, and he turns around and just starts walking towards the back door. I'm like, holy shit, we're in the middle of a live pay-per-view, and he's on the headset. What's going on here? So everybody starts walking out the back, and here's a little tidbit for you. I don't think anybody knows this. They all go walking towards the back to go walk out the door. I ran over as I see them going out to the back door, and I put on the headset really quick just because I was always fascinated, what goes on with that. And I hear, Ron and Charlie, the guys in the production truck, and I hear a bunch of people talking back and forth, and I just took it off really quick because I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to get heat because I put Paul's headset on. And so we go outside. And I'm not in the front of this because most of the Maniac crew was in the front.
What's the point, right? I mean, these guys are
because nobody knew what was going to happen.
We have some of the most insane guys who don't give a flying.
Sal's up front. I see Jack Victory up there. Chili Willy. Paul's up front, and all the XPW guys on the other side of the street, kind of. And it was an old West thing, dude. Tumbleweed thing. People were who's going to draw first. Look, man. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say who did what first. Did I see it? Yeah. But I'm telling you, I know who hit last because I don't know. I don't know who these XPW people were. I don't know if some of them were the workers. There was a big thing over the years. Oh, it was ring crew and stage hands or some shit. I don't know who any of these people
I don't know about that because we had Francine on and she said that Jasmine St. Clair had worked for them and was kind of stooging off who was who.
I don't know. I don't know
from the monitor, so at least it was definitely talent.
Oh, probably. Probably was. I just don't know who any of these people were. But I remember seeing Chili Willy. It was bumping feed, man. Dropping people left and right. Jack Victory beating up. New Jack swinging a crutch. Big Sal had two people, one in each hand, putting their face into a fence. People, I don't even know who these people were coming near us, and we were pushing people and just swinging arms and legs. And it was just... It was probably a couple minutes long. I remember the police being outside, seeing it, and they had, batons and stuff and all that, but they weren't doing anything. They were just watching it.
I don't blame them.
And then, it was almost like when the Socias got beat up by the Greasers and the Outsiders, like retreat, and like they all turned around and like took off like in the mud and the rain, like slipping and ran back to their vehicles and retreated. And it was almost like, I remember Paul, like, everybody's like, like a triumphant like beating. When you think about this in 2020, and I'm like, think about this. And wrestlers on a wrestling company went outside and gang fought another wrestling company. It's insane.
Yeah, that's like, it's almost like so ECW. It's like unbelievable.
Only us could do it. It could be USWA or Deep Set. Like, it could be no other thing. So, of course, the guys from ECW did that. And I just remember, like,
all while the main event's in the ring, right?
We go back in the ring. The match is still going on.
Yeah.
Dreamer's in the middle of a match and doing his whole thing. And I just remember us going back in, and everybody kind of calmed down a little bit. I remember Paul putting the headset back on, I think, and then the pay-per-view got finished up. But yeah, I mean, ECW went to California, and the thing with XPW was two things. Like, I never understood how they got all those front row tickets. They must have had a hookup or something. I don't know.
Or just paid scalper prices, man. I don't know. They're clearly trying to make a name for themselves at ECW's expense.
John, I don't think they thought the payoff was going to be what it was. Because I can't understand for the life of me how they sat around for days or weeks ahead of time planning all this out, and ever for 1 second thought, if it escalated to that level, how in the hell that was going to end any differently than the way it did. It would have been impossible. They could have had 4 times the numbers of people that ECW guys had. It would have been a wash.
I feel like Atlas Security could have whooped their ass by themselves without even the boys. Right?
Man, you give Atlas an inch, they would have taken a mile.
Atlas, I as a fan going to ECW shows, and I wasn't a bad kid or anything, but Atlas Security, the way I'd see them handle situations put fear in me that I knew that those are bad dudes.
10 times worse.
And they had dealt with the worst of the worst, you know what I mean?
Well, a couple times a month, we had full-blown riots at ECW shows. Yeah. At Ag Hall, the Arena, Staten Island, at the Bubble. Full-blown Buffalo Burt Flickler Center. I think Bubba got sued by them. But, I mean, it was just full-blown riots.
There's a building here around the block from me in Freeport that I think Bubba did something that got like 20 years ago.
Is that the bubble? Was it like a sports dome bubble thing or something?
In Freeport.
That's the one. Yeah. Like they literally attacked him. This radio guy, I don't know what the hell it was, but Bubba, I remember that. Bubba and Dick.
I've tried to run a show there, and they've said no.
Oh yeah, I was there. That was a great building too. Tommy D used to run that, and some of the old Staten Island promoters, and ECW ran it. And I remember, but it was just the Atlas Security. Good Lord, they brought several troublemakers to the back who swung at wrestlers and whatnot. Again, I can't say what would happen because I'm from a different era. I can't talk about these things. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, I don't know how some of these people ever made it out of the show alive when they got brought to the back. Yep.
Are the boys like celebrating this victory? Like, their first time in Cali? Like you going out that night in LA and just, I know that was never your thing, but.
No, they were pumped, man.
I mean, it was beat the crap out of an entire company. Had a kick-ass, successful, sold-out pay-per-view. I mean,
the beer was flowing. Everybody was high-fiving, and this was like, I want to say, this is towards the second half of ECW. Like things were, this is I think bounce checks somewhat, money problems, some stuff going on here and there. But it was moments like that people were like, I don't give a shit, man. There's no place I'd rather be.
Yeah.
That's the truth. You would have been right there in the middle of it all.
Sure. That sometimes in pro wrestling, that camaraderie like wins out almost. You know what I mean?
I can't believe to this day, and I've asked Feinstein about this a million times. He said he doesn't. I don't know how in the hell nobody filmed that.
Or anything.
I don't know how. Nobody from XPW or ECW had a camera outside, something, whatever. Could you imagine that holy grail of that footage?
I would love it. I was just glad to hear your version of it because there's been that lore of what happened, the range of rumor and innuendo, if you will, of what happened in this fight. And
with me too, like I'd like to think besides some concussions, I went through ECW pretty alert, pretty normal, not in a fog or a haze. Like I'm pretty detailed in everything I saw, and I was there for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
From 96 till it closed. I was there for 96 until the last show at every single show. So I saw everything. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'll never talk about. But this one was, man, it was a triumphant moment. It bonded ECW. It was the spirit of what ECW was. Like, you know what? These guys are trying to step us. We're going to beat the shit out of them. And again, I can't say who threw the first punch, but I will say who threw the last one. And XPW, if that's what they wanted, then that's what they got.
Yeah. So yeah, that's 4 different vantage points of this XPW brawl. I don't think, the true story of it will ever be told because it's living on in kind of this lore and fable and stuff, and I'm okay with that.
Right, for sure.
Nobody died. It's fine.
And if you listen to Balls Mahoney's side, it's
God, I wish Balls was still here to give us a whole nother version of that story.
Right.
But so kind of impromptu, while I was talking to these 4 talents, it wasn't something that Mark and I discussed prior. I just kind of asked all of them, like, can you believe that this show is in front of this many people, this hot of a crowd, and all these things, and sell out in Los Angeles, and then this company won't even be around 8 months later.
Crazy.
It was hard to that was just from doing my research and rewatching the event and then talking to them. It was just something that was just constantly on my mind. So I wound up asking all of them about it.
Right. Yeah, and they all sort of knew exactly what you meant, and if you listen to what they're saying, you sort of understand why the company was out of business 8 months later.
And I guess we'll end with this. I mean, we've been talking about what a success this show was. Sold out, legendary building. It's 20 years ago, July 2000. The company folds not too long after that. Is that just something?
6 months.
How insane is that? Have you ever gotten over that, or can you wrap your brain around that?
Well, here's the thing. I'm in a much better place in my life, but I sit back and I say I wish it had stayed another couple years, because even though I love my time in OVW, I love my time in WWE, to a certain degree. I think I could have had a better, because if ECW had stayed, I mean, you just said it, Grand Olympic Auditorium sold out. We had action figures, video games. We were killing it.
Yeah. I mean, I was even the last Hammerstein shows are like fans hanging from the rafters. There's not a piece of merch left on the table. Like it's just
at that time, I was in my peak physical condition. I came out, I was shredded to the gills. I was over. I was going to be in CW Anderson. We're going to be like feuding for the television title. And I think I was like, holy shit, man, I could have got a good run from that for maybe a couple years and then springboarded to even bigger star in WWE. Yeah. But, it didn't work out that way. But it just always, we'll never know exactly what happened. I don't blame anybody. It sucks that it happened because, and this is what I tell people when they say, they'll bag AEW, they'll bag on AEW, or they'll bag on TNA, or they'll bag on Ring of Honor, or they'll say what I say. Be careful what you say, man, because when ECW and WCW went out of business, there was a whole lot of talent who that was the end of their time ever again on national television. Yep. Their careers were never the same. No, they never, and then their careers were basically over. And when people talk about they shit on these other companies, I'm like, man, I went through that. Like I saw dozens of wrestlers who. They're never going to get another chance again. So it sucked, man. I wish there had been, I tell guys all the time, if there had been 3 companies, you would have had a job. Like there's a lot of guys I know like that.
Yeah, now there's guys on the brink and they can't catch a break because there's just not enough opportunity.
You wouldn't have to stay there for 12, 15 years if you weren't happy with it. You'd be like, look, I'll stay there a couple years, it ain't working. And if one of your boys worked in the other one, you call him up. Hey, man, talk to so-and-so over there. My contract's coming up here. What could they do for me? And that's how business was done. Like, I could call Canyon in WCW and say, hey, man, my contract's coming up in ECW. Can you get me a talk over there? And meanwhile, I could call, like, Christian or Edge or something in WWE and say, hey, what about them? And we all, like, that's how it worked. The boys had way more power. Now they don't. And it sucks. There's some guys like yourself, like Matt, like some of the Gallows, a bunch of, like, Rusev, the guys who were talented, Heath, who were talented and good, who were going to get another shot. But I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of guys who released a couple months ago. Their national television wrestling careers are basically over. It sucks. If anybody here, if any of those guys hears this and they need help moving on, I've done it. I can help them out, man. I'm a shoulder to cry on or listen to, whatever you want to call it. But it's a stark realization when it hits you in the face.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with ECW. And it sucked for a long time. A lot of us were mad about it.
Yeah. It's just the way, the business is, unfortunately. I mean, I feel like pre-COVID, we were almost entering like another era of like almost like that, where it was, but hopefully it gets back there one day. I will end with this. I was, like I said, a fan in those crowds, and I saw how over you were, and I do believe, like you said, if it stayed open, that you had paid your dues as far as in front of the ECW fans, where like they were, ready to, I think, make you a top guy as well. So
Yeah,
that would have been cool to see. But
that was the goal, man. I mean, but if ECW doesn't end, then we don't have an ECW reunion show in Buffalo, New York 6 months later, where I did that show. I didn't want to do it, but I wound up doing it because Dreamer asked me. I met a lady there who was from Canada. We had a good time. We hung out. I went to Canada the next week. We dated for a year. She wound up coming to Louisville, Kentucky. I married her, and I had my daughter out of that. So if ECW never closes, that never happens. So it's weird, man.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah, it does, dude. It does. I mean, I'm psyched for, like I said, for coming up for you and a bunch of other guys for this, what I would call the second half of your careers now. And now you can be the voices and you can help keep wrestling on the path. Get yourselves into booking positions and behind the scenes. Be agents. This is your business now, man. It's all you guys.
Hey, and if ECW doesn't close, maybe you never become my boss and get the Major Brothers out of developmental. And maybe, I'm not sitting here talking to you today. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. So I guess, this show is a huge success for the company. It seems like, all things are rolling. I don't know about behind the scenes if,
No, we were all on that high. We all thought,
right. Checks are bouncing maybe, but I mean, you're coming off.
No, we were getting paid great.
So you sell out, LA, you beat up another faction, or another group. You're having a great time, and then fast forward 7 months later, and the company basically folds. Is that just something unfathomable to you? Because as an ECW fan, it's something I've never been able to really quite swallow.
It was totally unreal because we were doing good houses. I the TV was good. I knew Paul had the problems with the network, but I wasn't in the inner circle, so I had that 27-year-old faith, oh man, we're gonna weather the storm. This is gonna be great, and it all work out in the end. And because Paul we weren't getting paid and stuff, but Paul wasn't down on he's like, no, it's going to get better. You just a little bit longer. And you felt like, well, okay, cool. If he's optimistic and, I would always look to Jack Victory. Jack went without a paycheck for, weeks on end because, it just wasn't any money. But he always had a smile on his face. And he's just like, well, this is a bad situation, but I'd rather be doing this than, working, digging ditches and, which is honest labor, but what would you rather do? And so I always took that into, as a guide when I became older. It's man, is it really that bad? At the end of the day, we're still in wrestling. There's times when, I've wanted to just,
I hear you.
Run through that wall. Yeah.
I think it's just because the people involved in wrestling love it so much that the highs are so high and the lows are so low. That's what I've always thought,
Where you meet your heroes and they just.
Or that. But then on the flip side, when you meet them and they're awesome.
Yes, boat, Shawn Michaels is really awesome.
There you go. I mean, there's plenty of examples. What do you think was so special about ECW that, I'm able to do a podcast about it? People still just love it, and it's still just beloved and praised, and it's lived on. All this time, 20 years after it's closing, people are still just clamoring for this product. What was it about it that was so special?
I don't know. To me, it was so intimate with the fans and the wrestlers, and at that time the internet was growing and growing, and I just felt like you were going to a party every weekend. And I wasn't a partier, but the party was the show, and it could be match 1 or match 9. Everybody went out there to steal a show, with wrestling the way it is, you're trying to build to your main event, and that's traditional wrestling. I felt like ECW tried to just say, these rules don't work for us anymore. We're in the whatever era you wanted to call it, around that attitude era. We're just going to change the rules. You don't have to lock up anymore. You can just beat the hell out of each other with chairs and tables and sticks, and use original music and not pay the rights for it.
That was always the coolest, man.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, that's that's something when you watch old stuff on the network. If you didn't see it when it aired, you just that a little bit just doesn't feel right.
And it was, I think it was that feeling of going to the show and you were always going to see something, no matter if it was one of the smaller towns in like Georgia or it was Queens, New York. You were going to see something different every night. And even if it was the same matches sometimes, like you could see Taz versus Spike Dudley 13 times in 13 cities, but it was 13 different matches. And I felt like with the growing numbers on the internet with wrestling, that people just, they wanted to know what was going on everywhere as opposed to what's going on in my city. And we were all in sync, and it was a party, and like you partied with the fans, and it was just, I don't know, it was an atmosphere. It was just such a cool atmosphere.
Was there a party in LA that Sunday night that you recall? Or I mean, no, it's kind of mind blowing to me that I know you don't party, but do you recall? It's crazy to me that this is the one and only California ECW show.
Yes, and we went out.
So I would imagine, as one of the boys myself, the boys then had to be pretty amped up, especially like beating up XPW and selling out a legendary building. Spirits are high.
I was like, my circle was really small. Like it was me, Jack Victory, Louis Dangerously, and C.W. Anderson. So, and sometimes we would like carpool with Tommy, but for the most part, it was us four. And school was always in session when we were on the road with Jack. Like, Paul put Jack with me, like to teach me. And he just taught me so much, and like just how to be like just to have fun, just to take into the moments. And like we would leave for a town early just so we could see something that we didn't see before. And because you just never know when it was going to end. And, he didn't really put up with us partying. Like he wanted to always keep an eye on us. If someone, God forbid, had like a girlfriend or something like that come in for the weekend, he would have to get the room next to us. So like Jack would always make sure like we were all taken care of.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Cool, man. I appreciate you doing this. If you ever come out of retirement, you know what that match is going to be with, right?
It's going to be with you.
This guy. I called dibs.
You give me a job.
I called dibs, yeah.
Brother, I've been working out so hard during this whole like COVID thing, and because I live at the beach, so I only have the beach, and then I live in a small town, so the gym is open. And I'm like, man, like I could definitely do something. And then I really think of it, and I go, I probably really can't do anything. Yeah.
I thought I was very in shape, and I had my first workout in the ring like since the COVID break, and I woke up the next day thinking my career was over. I was like, good Lord. Yeah. But
yeah, I'm going to work with Colby at the local wrestling school a couple times to see him beat my ass a little bit, and to see if I could take a bump. Like, I don't know. Like I used to when I was coaching, like I would take bumps with the guys. Like I would try and show them up and be like, oh, I can wrestle for 8 minutes in this ring. And I'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, did you see that? And then I would go back to my apartment. Why are our rings so hard? Yeah, like why is the ring so hard?
Well, you'll always be a badass to me because you're an ECW original, man. So
you're too nice to me.
Cool, bro. Thanks for doing this. Let's switch to more positive gears. You're basically ECW through and through there from basically day one, right? Now 7 years later, you're in the main event. A sold out legendary building in California, the one and only ECW show in California. How proud were you to be a part of? How proud were you to be a part of it, and how cool was it to see the company grow to a height like that? Was that something you ever thought was possible?
It's funny because when I first started with that company, we were giving away hot dogs and beer at the arena to fill the seats.
I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
But as time went on, and like you said, the company kept growing and growing and growing, and things were just coming into place. And I'll never forget Barely Legal 97. Forever will be, on film, because the Beyond the Mat shows me crying my eyes out. I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. I'm excited.
You earned this. You earned this. I've watched it a lot. Trust me. Yeah.
It was such a surreal moment, and the speech that he gave Like Paul, Paul is such a motivating person, and he can just tell you the sky is green and the grass is blue, and you'll be like, yes, sir, it is.
Hey,
He's I always say, wonderful.
Confidence is the secret weapon of a pro wrestler, man. If you got that, you're almost, the unstoppable.
You're invincible.
And then the lack thereof is the other way. You're almost in danger if you don't have it.
Yeah, exactly. But from that night on, I was just so proud to be a part of that locker room, because so many guys would come and visit, from WWF, WCW, wherever, and they'd always say, man, this locker room's so cool. I wish I was a part of this. Not many people can say they were a part of that little company. I can, and it's a proud moment for me to be able to say that. So fast forward, and we're in California now. We're thinking like bigger and better things. We're starting to travel to the West Coast, and now we're all over the place, so to speak. But then TNN, it's our downfall. Yeah, so as much as we were built up, we knew things were going to go in reverse. And, as talent, you're thinking, how do you fix this? When in reality, we had no power over anything. All we could do is show up and work and give 110%. And we did every single time. And that's what we did.
Were you being paid throughout the downfall? Was there ever a problem like that?
I did not get paid for about 10 weeks straight. And, but I went to Paul and I was like, I don't know how much longer I could do this. My checks are bouncing, and you're being charged $35 for every bounce check on top of that. So you're trying, we would even try to go, we would drive to New York to try to go to the bank that was on the check to see, and they'd be like, oh no, where am I supposed to get money from? You know what I mean? So for 10 weeks, I was just bounce. And he said, wait here. And he came back in and he had a wad full of cash plus all the money from the bounce check fees. Wow. So he did make up for that. But yeah, there were times like Christmas time, there's no money coming in. Thankfully, I didn't have a family. I didn't have children. So it didn't affect me as much as some of the boys who had wives and kids. It was a hard period to go through. So,
cool. The last thing I want to touch on in this period, obviously you're main eventing the show, and it's like you said, it's built around a pretty dramatic storyline of Tommy finally getting the belt, and it's ends up being 9 minutes, and you turn and you join PJ. Just incredible. How much did you have involvement in stuff like that, like your character, and I guess also what did you enjoy more? The babyface valet or the naughty girl, the heel? What were you more comfortable in that situation?
100% being a heel is better than being a babyface. And I think anybody who ever worked both can agree with me. It's much more fun. You get to do a lot more with your character. That night, the California pay-per-view, I remember Tommy, he was like, oh, we're going to do this spot. I'm going to climb the ladder and you're going to come up behind me and you're going to give me a ball shot. And we're going to go to the side and we're both going to fall off the ladder together. And I kept telling him, Tommy, you're going to fall on me.
Yeesh, that's a big caboose. You don't want that falling on you.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not going to fall on you. I'm not going to fall on you. Well, he fell straight back on me and just literally crushed me to the point where I think I might have broke a rib or something. But I had a lot of input from, I would say, almost day one. Paul was the best boss that I've ever worked for. If you had an idea, you can go to him and say, hey, I thought about this. And he would say, that's brilliant, or let's tweak it, or it won't work. Why don't we try this? He was always willing to talk about things, and it was never a hard no. It was always, okay, well, maybe we can do it this way. As far as my character, when I first started, I just wanted to put Sherry Martel and Nancy Sullivan together and put a twist on it.
Yeah.
Because Nancy was like this vixen who was just so beautiful, and Sherry was just the badass who could bump. And I wanted to be a badass who looked good. And that's what I tried to do.
Cool.
So,
things were expected of the women in ECW that had never been expected of females in the business. You know, like you said, like taking a bump off a ladder and getting squished by a guy. You know, it's the first of its kind. You know, basically.
And I was down for it. I told Paul, you know, if you want me to take finishers from guys, I will totally do it. Like, because I didn't want to just be some girl who looked cute in a skirt. You know, I wanted to work. I wanted to gain the guys' respect. And I also wanted to leave my mark on the business. And I want to be known as that girl who really wanted to work and wasn't just there for shits and giggles. You know, I wanted to perform.
Also, after watching the show back, just jarred in my mind, Gorgeous George randomly involved in this. What do you remember about that? That was very, very short-lived.
Yeah, I love George. I love George to this day. It was great working with her. They brought her in and she was, Tommy's secret weapon. But in reality, the plan was she was with me all along.
Yeah, that's
so you see us hug and the big swerve. But prior to that, the build up, I mean, poor George, I was caning her. I was just beating the hell out of her. We were fighting and sneaking up on her and hitting her from behind. And she was a trooper, and she's such a good girl and good to work with. And, I don't know what happened, why she didn't last, but it didn't matter because it wasn't very long. But then once she left, the company went under soon anyway, so she really didn't miss too much by leaving early.
I guess we'll end with something like that. Does that blow your mind that July? By the way, 20 years ago, can you believe that?
Is it 20 years?
It's been 20 years. July 2000, and then the company folds officially. What in? Last show's in January 2001, and then I think
Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Yeah, and it
was our last show.
Officially folds in like March or April, I believe, like paperwork wise, but there's no shows. Does that blow your mind that you could be such great heights only a few months before to closing its doors? Have you ever been able to grasp that?
No, because I still don't understand fully what happened, and I was there. Which is sad if you think about it. There are so many different stories that you hear and that you're told. And I still haven't got closure. But my piece is that if I didn't have Paul in my life, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I can seriously never hold a grudge against him for whatever reason, because he made me. And if it wasn't for Paul, I probably wouldn't be in this business. So that's the way I look at it. Like, a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about Paul. I really can't, because he's been such a great boss, like I said, but he was also a friend at the time. And if I needed him for something not work related, or I just needed to vent or an ear or something, he was there. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and bury him. I just don't understand why it went down the way it did. But who knows who's to blame? I have no clue.
Yeah,
and that makes me so angry, because I feel like there was so much more as a company that we could have did, because we were only like in our early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. People don't
realize how young everyone was when this all.
Yeah, I mean, I was 20 years old. You know what I mean? I was a baby. I didn't know anything about the business. And now, 7 years later, I'm 27 years old. The guys are in their early 30s. We had so much more to give, and it was just taken from us too soon. So.
And us fans as well, so we feel the same.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Franny, you're the best. I do believe you are a groundbreaking female in the business, like you said, and I think as time goes on, I think even more people will give you your due, and for the things you did, and made a big difference.
I just love hearing stuff like that. That makes me so happy. So if I made one person smile and that person's you, then that's all I need in my life.
Oh, there you go. So, well, I'm always smiling when it comes to you. All right, thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
All right.
Yeah, so it was 5,700 was the attendance, sold out.
Yeah.
And obviously this is July 16, 2000. So ECW folds basically in March of 01 to be where you are on this show. Sold out, hanging from the rafters, pay-per-view, first time in LA, to not even a year later, the company folds. Is that just something you've ever been able to kind of grasp? I mean, as a fan, I haven't. So
no, I haven't either. And it was sad because I have no issues with Paul Heyman. Let bygones be bygones. But he was telling all of us to hang on. That was always this thing. Hang on, don't worry. We've got a TV deal. I'm going out to LA to sign a deal. When in reality, he went to LA to film Rollerball. If my memory serves me right. And I said, you know what, Jill? Because we were my wife and I. Well, my wife worked for the company doing T-shirts, but we were under contract, and it was like, I'm not getting paid. And at that point, I have a family. I had I had a child, a newborn at the time. And I just sent an email to Jim Ross. And Paul found out about that. And I signed with WWE. And he's literally fuming at me saying, how could you do this to me? How could you betray us? And I debuted at the Nassau Coliseum. Mm-hmm. And I did an appearance there recently, or just like a couple days ago. I did a signing for K&S out there in Long Island, and I was just driving by the old Nassau Coliseum, and I remember, and like as I'm driving there,
hey, you should have told me. We could have had lunch. I'm 10 minutes away.
I know. I should have. But when that happened, I was, I felt really bad, but I was like, I got to feed my family, so I signed a 3-year deal with WWE. And then Heyman calls me. I was running a little late because of traffic. I was coming from New Jersey, and Paul's like, where are you? I'm like, what do you mean, where am I? He goes, I'm at the building, you're late. He chastised me for signing a deal when he was there that night commentating already. Yeah. Already had his foot in the door. Yeah. So it was like that. You don't know what. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Sure. So that it just goes to show you that you have to just really take care of yourself. And it's a shame because we always believed in standing by our brand of ECW and being loyal. But at the end of the day, man, it's all a bunch of horse shit because, nobody else is thinking of, you know what I mean? It's just, and Paulie was the biggest snake of them all. So
yeah, I was going to say, Paul Heyman, is he unlike anyone you've ever met in your life?
He's Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate. If you remember that movie, if you've ever seen it, that's him to a T. I mean, he's a wonderful mind for the business, but he's also, he'll sell his own children to Satan if he had to.
I feel like the biggest sucker of them all because I've grown up loving ECW, borderline idolizing the guy, and hearing all these stories from guys like you that I've befriended. Then I work for him and think nothing of it.
Yeah.
How stupid is that? How stupid is that? And he undercuts me and all my friends, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with us getting let go. But
that's how it is, man. And unfortunately, the people like us, because I'm the same way, man. I idolize people, and I got into this business out of pure love for it. I never thought I would make it. I never thought I would do any of the things I've done, even though it, on a grand scale, it may not be a lot. But I'm surprised I got as far as I did. And, one thing Paul did really well, he wasn't like the greatest mind, but he was a great motivator. He gave you he told you what you needed to hear. Like me, I was a very modest, kind of shy guy and somebody that wasn't very sure of myself. And he made each and every one of us believe that we could be that guy or whatever, and I think that's his best trait was not so much the storylines, not so much the booking, was making you believe in yourself. So that's the one good thing that Heyman brought to the table. And also a lot of people don't give enough credit. Maybe they do, I don't know. But Tommy Dreamer, if there was no Tommy Dreamer, Paul Heyman wouldn't have been able to get away with half the stuff because Tommy was the buffer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Between the boys and Heyman. So.
All right, man. That was it, man. I just want to get your thoughts on such a legendary event. Can you believe it's 20 years?
I can't. Yeah. I'm 46 years old, and I just can't believe that it's been so long. Like, I just remember I watched some ECW stuff recently, and when I first started ECW, it's like the 23-year-old upstart, just incredible.
Yeah,
and it's like I was so young. I didn't get a chance to really I just wish I got into my 30s and had the opportunity to be in a position where I was more seasoned, where I had more knowledge, to where I could probably do even more so, and it's a shame because, and a lot of it through my own fault. But then again, WWE is WWE. I never pulled any punches, nor do I give a damn. But it's a very strange place to work, and that as well as anybody.
For sure, yeah.
And they have probably one of the greatest rosters in the world, some of the best men and women in the world, and you don't get that opportunity. Unfortunately,
I think it's like it doesn't matter how talented you are. Sometimes if you can't navigate the political waters that you're in, you're almost screwed no matter what. Right.
Yeah, and it's a shame because you usually get that dictated to you by writers that don't have any idea what professional wrestling is. And I think that was always, and I think the frustration lies with fans. I mean, I looked at the ratings today for Raw. It was like 1.6. When in the I started doing jobs for WWF, and the Raw ratings were 3. And we're talking back in 93 and 94.
When business is down.
To have a 1.6 is, it's scary because they still have one of the greatest rosters of all time. So it's a shame.
All right, let's end it with this. ECW saved your career, safe to say?
Oh, absolutely.
Best time of your career?
Time in my career, I hate to say it, but best time in my life.
Awesome.
We were around a bunch of great friends. It was nothing like any professional wrestling company that I've been to before or after. We were all a band of brothers, all friends. And even though we might not have all loved each other, when we got into that locker room, it was like holy ground. Mm-hmm. And we protected one another. We fought for one another. And it was a beautiful thing. It allowed you to do your best work with no reservations. So it was a special place.
Yeah, it says something that we're talking about it, 20 years later. Yeah. So beloved.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. It's my pleasure, Brian.
Cool. You got anything you want to plug? Your social media?
Just if you're into it, follow me on Twitter at PJ Polacco, also on Instagram at PJ Polacco, and of course, ProWrestlingTees.com/JustIncredible. And we have a 3-man show with me, Sandman, and Shane Douglas that has been postponed because of COVID. But we will have updates for you. Just go to wholeeffintruth.com. We have rescheduled dates coming for you ASAP, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm still reserving that Creator Pro booking for you guys for that.
Yeah, I'm there, brother.
I would love it. I'll be the first one to buy a ticket.
You and me in the ring, brother.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, folks, that is the pilot episode of Extreme Conversations. Like I said, this was a little passion project that I kind of nagged Mark about, and we finally kind of hammered it down to what it could be.
Right.
If you enjoyed this, please reach out to us. Use hashtag Extreme Conversations. Let us know what you think or thought about it. If you thought it sucked, let us know.
Yeah.
Tell us it sucked. We want to hear it all. So I won't block you. I'm not Matt Cardona, but I want to know. So, or if you want to keep the conversation going, whatever it is, use hashtag Extreme Conversations, and hopefully we'll be back with a whole season. That's the plan. If you guys like this, we'd like to do in seasons, not a weekly thing because it's just too much of a task. But
right.
Mark and I think we can hammer down certain subject matters in a seasons format and provide it for you guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to provide something a little different than you normally hear in an interview podcast. And make it sort of manageable for us and also elevate the content. So that's what we would love to do with this project. Let us know. I'm excited about it, especially for the possibility of doing, and we could just say it here, a full Balls Mahoney episode is on the docket.
Just hit me with Balls Mahoney stories all day, baby.
Yeah, I would love it. All right, man. Cool. Thanks.
Take it easy, guys.